Starting a new sugya. I thought we were out of sugyas, to be honest, in Choshen Mishpat. Now we could start going over things that we've done, but this whole section of Nezikin we never really did. And there's a lot of interesting things and very, very negerdika things. So Adam HaMazik, we'll start with that. Adam HaMazik is, but I want to just give an introduction because it gets things can get confusing. In the Torah, there's really 3 types of Nezikin. There's really more. Tana de Berboishia, 4 and 21, and different prices. But when we're going to explain certain things about the Nezikin, you have to always understand Hakdama. And the Hakdama is something, there's 3 basic categories that we're going to be going, and each one has its own halachos, and you have to really be understanding of which one is it. And that is that the first Mishnah Bava Kama says that there's Arba Avos Nezikin, as we know, right? So the first Mishnah Bava Kama, so what's that? That's a category called Mammon HaMazik. So the Torah is mechayiv you if you have your property, something that you're responsible for, and that damages. So you have your ox, and it goes ahead and eats someone's stuff, or it goes ahead and gores someone, or something like that. So you're responsible. What's your chiv? Shmira. You have a chiv shmira on that. Make sure that your thing doesn't damage. It's a chiddush in the Torah. You didn't do it. Your animal did it. You didn't do it. You dug a hole and someone fell in. You didn't do it, but you put your backpack down and someone trips over it. So even though you didn't do it, you're chayiv because you have to be shomer your things. So that's the chiv of Mammon HaMazik. Give another example. Eish. Eish means anything which requires a karet achamura boy. So let's say you lit a fire in your backyard and it spreads. You're chayiv al eish, but that's not you, pashtas. But it's not you doing it. Your eish does it. Similarly, let's say you put something which is dangerous in a place and the wind knocks it off. So it's also your mammon. It's not you. You were negligent, and that's how it happened. But it's not you who damaged. It's your mammon that damaged, right? So therefore, there's a chiddush called Mammon HaMazik. Now, there's another category, next category, is a category of shomer. A shomer, I didn't damage it, but I took responsibility to watch it, and I have to watch your item. Now, I take your thing, I'm going away for the weekend, can you watch my whatever, my pet? Can you watch, that's a good example. Watch my, what? Yeah. And Lamaisa, I wasn't careful with something. I didn't lock the door properly, and the wind came in, blew, and something fell off the shelf. Did I do it? No. Did my mammon do it? No, it wasn't my mammon, and it wasn't me. So what's my chiyuv? I have an independent chiyuv shmira. If you're negligent on your chiyuv shmira, then you have to pay. So that's another category. So there's a category called Mammon HaMazik. You own something and you weren't shomer it properly, and you were negligent. You have to pay. And there's another, and that's when your mammon is mazik. And there's another thing called achiv shmira. What we're talking about now is Adam HaMazik. Adam HaMazik is when you go ahead with your own 2 hands and we're mazik someone's property. And we're going to see that this category is the most chamor, which is logical. Kipshutai should be the most chamor because you did it yourself. Okay? Now, I was reading in a book that Rav David gave me a while ago, an article. I figured he had something on this. So there was an article there that if you send someone an email, the difference is that each category has different halachos. Adam HaMazik, you're chayiv and all oifan. But let's say something is eish, your fire, not chayiv and all oifan. For example, the Gemara says tomun be'eish. If something's hidden, there's a kosev. You're not chayiv for that. So let me give you. That's why it's very important to categorize every type of nezikin. So for example, there's 2 people. One is downstairs, one is upstairs. The upstairs person is showering. They take a shower, and their water, lamaisa, they're not careful or whatever. There's a leak, and it goes into the person beneath them in their apartment, and maisa shahaya, and it went into their closet, and it damaged some of the clothing. because there was a closet underneath this shower. So they went to a din Torah. Does the upstairs person owe money to the downstairs person? So you would say, well, you're not careful. I mean, you turn on the shower, and you're mazik them, basically. So the upstairs guy, the downstairs guy, tainad Adam hamazik, you damaged me. Right? You poured water on my head. So you poured water on my stuff. If you have stuff, if I had clothes right here and you would pour water on them and they get damaged, you got to pay. Adam hamazik, you got to pay. Well, I didn't realize. Adam would laila. I don't care if you realize. You didn't realize. You weren't negligent. It's not your fault necessarily. Well, it's not your fault necessarily, but even if you never knew that there was a leak, it doesn't matter. You have to pay. The upstairs guy, probably had a good tie-in. So the upstairs guy, what happened? The upstairs guy said, "No, this is not Adam Mazik. This is Aish. It's my fire. It's not me. V'haraya. What's Aish? Aish. I put it here, and then it goes by itself. So here also, I put the water. I turned on the shower, and then it rolls to wherever it rolled, and it fell down over there. It's not me. It's indirect. So it's called Aish. Now, if it's called Aish, I damage your stuff that's inside the closet. It's Talmud. It's not Potter. Right? So it's actually a good shaila. So what was the shaila of this sefer? They had a shaila. If you send someone, you didn't realize, and you got some sort of email and you forwarded it to your friend. The email was a virus, and when the other guy opened up the email, it went into his computer and it knocked out and it took over his computer, and there was a virus and it caused him a lot of damage. You have to get someone to come in and fix his whole computer. So he's tying to you. You sent me. You damaged my computer. You sent me over this email with the virus. It's Adam Hamazik, and you didn't realize. But we're going to learn if it's Adam Hamazik. Maybe it's a different thing. He was saying no. You could because you turned on the computer. When I turned it off, it was off. It was like Aish. I put something here, and then you did something to go make it mazik you. If you would have never opened the email, it would have never happened. So it's like Chayach Acham Uraboy. And Memela, I'm Potter, because if it's Momen Amazik, I wasn't Pashea. Right? So there are things that you have to really understand what is every. I'm saying this is because there's going to be a big machlokes between Tais and the Ramban on some of the cases that we're going to discuss. So I'm just being mocked in Mahol Akdama to understanding what we're talking about. We're talking, every category in halacha has its own set of rules. If you're a shomer, there's chiv shmira. If you're adam amazik, adam mazik. If it's your momni, you're a shus, that's maman amazik. Everything has different categories, and you have to understand before you can even pass in the shaila, what is it? Which category are you in? Were you a shomer? Were you adam mazik? Were you maman amazik? You were aish? You were fire? You were bar? What are you? Okay, so what we're going to talk about, so for example, when you have the cases that we're talking about, it's going to be Adam Hamazik for the beginning. Adam Hamazik, and some of the rules that we're going to learn are going to talk about cases like malpractice cases or car accident where you're driving. You're not going to say, well, I'm driving, but my car hit you, so it's my moment. Right? So because even the guy, the downstairs guy who tined the upstairs neighbor who tined that his water leak is Aish, but he would agree that if you took the water and poured it on the guy's clothes, that it's Adam. Right? You're doing it yourself. That's obvious. So Mamela, what we're going to be talking about is these types of cases. Now, there's a lot of different steps to getting a final psak. For example, just give you a few examples of shilas that we're not getting to now or in the next week or two, but they're shilas. Well, a lot of people have the shaila when if you scratch someone's car, okay? Adam Mazik, I scratched your car. I didn't realize, whatever, but fine. I scratched your car. Now, the damage to your car is very minimal, the value, because whether you could sell the car with the scratch or without the scratch, the value to the car is very minimal. Okay, you could probably sell the car for the same price before the scratch or after. But if I want to, but if the person who owns the car wants to fix the scratch, it's going to cost him a few $100s to repaint and this and that. And then if he has an adjuster, forget it. It's like he's got to get a whole new car because of that. So Shad is, what does the mazik have to pay? He has to pay for the damage. He has to pay to fix the damage. That's a basic shaila. Shaila is about insurance. first hashas of insurance are going to get to dina de machusa dina, then to get to arkois. Can you sue someone for their insurance? But in general, someone could say, well, insurance is going to cost me more. I just want to pay you to fix it. And the other person says, well, I can get an insurance claim for a lot more money, and I'll be able to get more money from it. So a lot of these different types of shilas. But before we get there, we have to really understand the sugya, because the derech is that you can only really understand the halacha after you really understand the sugya well. So, this week and maybe next week, and we're probably just going to get to the basic yisodos before we can get to the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so let's look at the first Mishnah, which is page 1 in the booklet. The Mishnah Bava Kama Chavav Amud Aleph. Adam muad l'olam. Adam is muad l'olam. In other words, the Mishnah is coming off after it said that a shor is not always muad. Muad means it's warned from damaging. When you buy a new ox, it's not warned against damaging. It's a tam. We don't know that it has a nature to damage. But Adam, you have to be careful right away that it should not damage. L'olam. So you have to be careful always. Bein b'shoigeg. Bein b'mezid, whether you did it by accident or on purpose, bein air, whether you're sleeping, bein yashan. So this is a concept of adam muad la'olam. You are responsible for your damage, as opposed to popular belief nowadays. People actually are responsible for what they do. Okay, so and even if it's the reason you damage is because your third grade teacher, stepped on your toe, it doesn't matter. Lamaisa, you are chayiv for your damages that you do. So adam muad la'olam bein b'shoigeg bein b'mezid bein air bein yashan. Sima es ein chaveroi. Vishiber es hakelim, Misham nezek shalom. That's a separate part of the Mishnah. We'll talk about that later. Fine. So the Mishnah is telling me that there are no excuses. Adam muad la'olam. It means if you damage someone's stuff, there are no excuses. You have to pay. Now let's see to what extent that goes. So Amar Rabban Amud Beis, page 2, Chavav Amud Beis. Amar Rabba. So we're going to see how paying for damage is more chomer than any other category of hezek. Amar Rabba, Haisa Evan Munachas LeBecheka. You had a stone and you knew about the stone. No, I'm sorry. In this case, you didn't. Munachas V'loy Hikerba. You never even knew it was there. Ve'amad, and you got up, and because you got up, Nafla, you got up, and the stone fell off your lap, and it damaged. So the Inyan Nezikin, all nezik that it causes chayiv. But the Inyan Arba Dvarim Potter. Arba Dvarim are the additional payments that you have to make if you damage a person, and because of that they lose work, or they have to get help, or they have to pay medical bills, or anything like that. The additional payments they have to make for damaging a person, you're potter, because that requires a certain level of kavana. But here you had no kavana, but you still have to pay for the damage. What about if you're mechal Shabbos because of such an action? Linyan Shabbos, Melechas Mach Shabbos Asur Torah. The Torah wants your kavana. You didn't have kavana. Linyan Golos, you killed someone by accident. Potter, you don't have to pay. Linyan Eved, what if you knock out your Eved's tooth or eye with such an action like this? Okay, and the Gemara brings a brayso to prove that point. So that's case number 1. Now, this case means that you see here, for all other areas of halacha, Shabbos, Golos, Eved, it's not considered, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not responsible for that. But all of a sudden, if it causes damage, you got to pay. Why? Because it's a certain level of oinus. Even though it's oinus, oinus normally we say is your potter. Oinus means you have no way of knowing. But here it's not here you're still chayiv. You have to pay. So you see from here, you're responsible no matter what happens. It was on your lap. You got up. You didn't realize it was there. You still have to pay. The next case is a little bit more simple because it says hikerba. You knew it was there, but you forgot. Then for sure you're chayiv. Amad v'nafla. Linyan nezikin chayiv. Linyan nezikin chayiv. And linyan dalad dvarim potter. But here linyan galus you're chayiv. If you kill someone that's called a shoyig, you got to pay. You got to go to galus. Okay? So 2 cases. You had a stone on your lap. You didn't know that you had a stone on your lap. So either, number 1, you never knew that it was there, or you knew it was there once. Either way, you get up, and the damages you got to pay. So this is a raya adam muad lo'olam. Now, where does this get tricky? Is like this. I just want to be mocked in something. Normally, b'chol ha'torah kula, even not Shabbos, b'chol ha'torah kula, there's a principle that oines is pater, oines rachmana patre. If you did something that was beyond your control, we don't consider it to be an action that you're responsible for. Okay? That's the concept of oines. If a person is forced to eat treif, Oinus can mean that you didn't realize, or you realized, but you were forced to do it. Why were you forced? Because a guy said, I'm going to kill you if you don't eat it. You're potter. Because you're Oinus, you're forced to do it. You're not chayav for such a thing. You did it with no das. So here it sounds like it's different. Here it sounds like even though it was Oinus, simple reading of the Mishnah and simple reading, you were sleeping. Normally, if you're sleeping and you do something wrong, you're not chayav for that. But here, you're chayav. So it sounds like this is different than every other parsha in the Torah. That Oinus, you're taka chayav. Now we're going to see that Tosfos says not like that. So let's see. It says Hamaniach Hazakad, the Mishnah in the third parak of Bava Kama, the first Mishnah in the third parak of Bava Kama now. It says Hamaniach Hazakad b'Rishus Harabim u'ba'achav v'niskalba. So you put down a jug of milk Rishus Harabim and someone trips on it, you have to pay if he got damaged because you put a bar in Rishus Harabim. But let's focus the other way around. Does the guy who tripped, does he have to pay for your barrel, for your jug that he broke? So there's two opposite cases, right? You put a glass in Rishus Harabim. The guy comes, trips over it, breaks his glasses. You got to pay for that. Fine. But what about in the meanwhile? Does he have to pay because he stepped on your glass? He stepped on the glass, and you shattered your expensive bowl. Does he have to pay for that? Now, what do you say? Why in the world would you say he has to pay for it? You put the thing in the middle of Rishus Harabim. Why is it's his responsibility to start looking around and because Adam Muad Loilam. So he damaged you because he stepped on your crystal bowl. So even though you put it in the Rishus Harabim, it could be he has to pay for it. So the Gemara asks this question: why is he potter? The Gemara on the top of Chav Zayin Amud Beis, page 4. The Gemara says, "Am I potter? Why is he potter? The guy should be looking where he's going." So Amri Debei Rav Mishmei, not to the exclusion of the fact that you have to pay for what happened to him. You're both chayiv. You have to pay because the guy slipped on your crystal bowl and broke his glasses. You got to pay for his glasses. Fine, but he should have to pay you for the crystal bowl because he's Adam Mazik. You were Mazik him with bar, but he was Mazik you with Adam Mazik because he stepped on your crystal bowl, and therefore he should have to pay for it. So Amri Debei Rav Mishmei Rav, you're right. He should pay. But here we're talking about b'memali Rishus Harabim kula chavias. One answer, you basically didn't give him anywhere to go, and I want to focus on the next two answers. Shmuel Amar ba'afei lashon Rabbi Yochanan Amar b'keren zavis. Shmuel says it was dark. What's Shmuel's answer? What's he saying? It was dark. So what? So you can't blame the guy. What?
He had no way to see.
He had no way to see. You can't blame the guy for stepping on your crystal ball and breaking it because it was dark outside. And the second teretz, Karen Zavis, means you didn't put it straight on the path. You put it on the corner. Right when he turned the corner, he stepped on it. So what's the obvious question? Yeah, who cares that it was dark? And who cares that there was no way for him to see it? Adam Muad Loilam. If you have to pay, if the guy would be sleeping and he broke your thing, he would have to pay. So why wouldn't he have to pay if it was dark outside? That's Tosfos' kasha. So Tosfos proves from here, Tosfos' shita, that even though Adam Muad Loilam, it's not really Adam Muad Loilam. You have to have some level of responsibility of pshia. Pshia means negligence. You have to have some level of pshia in order to be chayiv for Adam Amazik. You have to be negligent to some degree. It can't just be that it was a complete oinus. It can't be a complete oinus. Oinus means it was out of your control. No way I could have known that. You're not chayiv if it was complete oinus. Because Tosfos says, I have a clear Gemara. So it's going to go through 4-5 Gemaras. Now what I want to try to do is, there's going to be 5 Gemaras that Tosfos is going to prove. And that's going to be Tosfos' shita. The Tosfos' shita is that it's very misleading. Adam Muad Lo'ilam, you're not chayiv always. For oinus gomor, something that really is not avoidable, you're potter. The Ramban holds, no, it's much more literal. Adam Muad Lo'ilam, you're always chayiv. Always. So each Gemara that we say, which is going to be a proof to Tosfos, we're going to have to figure out how the Ramban learns the Gemara, and how the Ramban is doicha the raya of Tosfos, okay? So we're going to have a very big machlokes rishonim. Now, today we're not going to get to, so what does the Rambam hold? What does the Rosh hold? What does the Tur hold? What does the Shulchan Aruch hold? What do we hold Lamaisa? We're not there yet. But let's just get the principles. The idea is that you're more responsible for Adam than most things. Most things you're only chayiv if you did a pshia, you were negligent. By Adam, even if you were not negligent, you're still chayiv. But to what degree? Tosfos is going to say, it's not an oines gomer. If it was really, really out of your control, you're not chayiv. The Ramban is going to say, even oines gomer, you're chayiv. Let's just take one example, just off the bat. The Mishnah said, what about what we asked? The Mishnah said if you were sleeping. The Mishnah said you're sleeping. So how is Tosfos going to deal with that? I would think that if you damage something when you're sleeping, ein lecha oines gadol mizeh. It's impossible, right? You have no level of responsibility or negligence whatsoever. Right? So isn't that a raya to the Ramban? So how are we going to answer that? Well, we're going to say that Tosfos is going to say it's talking about a case that you do have some level of responsibility because you went to sleep next to something, and therefore you knew that you could turn over and knock it over, so therefore you have some level of negligence there. So this is going to be the shaila. Okay, so let's go one by one through the rayas of Tosfos. The first Tosfos says like this, where it's underlined in the Tosfos Shmuel. Tosfos says, didn't we already say that you're chayiv? So how could it be that if it was dark outside, that you're potter? Teretz is oines gamor, a complete oines, loy rabbi rachmana. The Torah never included that in the chiyuv. Daha, b'Yushalmi, poiter oiseh sheyashen rishon. Because Yushalmi says, if two people went to sleep next to each other, and one of them damages the other, the guy who went to sleep first is potter. It's only the guy that went to sleep second that's chayiv. Because he knew that the other guy was next to him, and he may flip over and knock him out. So, therefore, only the second guy is chayiv. So it's a raya, says Tosfos, that the first guy is oines gomer, is taka potter. The hab Yushalmi, poiter oiseh sheyashen rishon, im hizik l'sheni, haba etzlo lishon. Okay, so that's proof number one. I would assume, this we have to see exactly. How is the Ramban going to deal with this Yushalmi? Well, so the Ramban is going to have a Yesoid over here to explain a few of the cases. We'll see it inside soon. But the Ramban is going to have a Yesoid. The Ramban says, you're really chai for Oines Gomer. But if the owner himself takes on some level of responsibility, so let's say you were sleeping. Zok the Ramban, you were sleeping and you knocked something off the shelf, you're chayiv. Not because you have a level of pshia. Oines Gomer. But let's say you were sleeping and the owner came, the owner of the vase came and put it next to you. So he himself takes a level of responsibility. He was a shtickle mazik himself. So since the owner himself was mazik himself, kind of, to explain a little bit, so therefore he himself put it in a situation that he basically was pesha on his own item, so that's why you're potter. Okay? Let's take Tosfos' other eye from the Gemara right here. The guy put it in the dark. So Tosfos says if it's dark outside, even if you step on a crystal bowl and it's dark outside, you're potter because it's on his gomer. What's the Ramban going to say? The same thing. The guy put it down and he knew that it was made end up being dark outside. So Kolzman, that it's light out, but you put it out in this dark out. So you know that no one's going to be able to see it. So you're a pasheya in your own things. You're a pasheya in your own item. That's the reason why the other guy is potter. The mazik is potter. Okay? So that's going to be, that explains this machlekes. V'chein ba'goizel basra. Okay, this raya is a complicated raya from the Ramban's perspective, but let's see how Tosfos brings a raya. Kabihiniach lamaviam parashuula kisvurim shalviemu v'tavcho v'achlo mishalman d'meibasa. Is a great case. So a guy has there was a person, an old man. He borrowed someone's para. Why did he borrow the para? Because he needed to do some work in the field, okay, or whatever. Now he dies, and his kids have the para. The kids have the para. The kids don't know the whole story, that it was borrowed, not borrowed. They just remember that the father had this para. And now, for the Yortzeit Suda, they're hungry, they shech the para. They got some meat, they shech the para. The owner of the para comes and says, by the way, I know your father had borrowed that for a long-term loan, can I have back my animal? So, what do you mean back? We just shechted it. So are they chayiv to pay? So the Gemara says they're potter. So sisters, why are they potter? They would damage someone's thing. So Zoktois must be that the answer is they had no way of knowing that it belonged to that it didn't belong to the father. They had no way of knowing that it belonged to someone else. It's an oines gamor. It's considered something that they had no way of knowing. And since it's an oines, they're potter. So Tosis has another proof that oines gamor, if it's completely out of your control, you're potter. What's the Ramban going to do with this raya? So the Ramban actually, this is the only raya that in the Ramban himself, as we see, he does not address the raya directly. But the Ramban says something on a different case to prove the point. I'm going to go to the other case, and we're going to address both of them together. If you go to the end of the Tosfos, it's the third to last line in the Tosfos. It says, "V'chein muchach b'perek hagoyzel eitzim." Eitzim is the first one in the line, second to last line of the Tosfos. He brings a raya from hagoyzel eitzim. It says like this: Tabach uman shekilkel. This is the cases of malpractice. This is the malpractice shilas. The guy is a tabach uman. He's a very good shaychet. He's a very good shaychet. He took your animal. He said, "I'm going to shecht it for you." He shechts the animal. L'maisa, he messed up. He messed up the shechita, and now he ruined the animal. So now what? What's the halacha? Does he have to pay? Does he not have to pay? So the Gemara says that it depends if he was paid or not paid, but for sure, if he was not paid, the park the man de potter bechina mibraisa, etc. So it says afil bechinam chayiv k'moshe shechayiv al aveda mishani ema mipnei shu noisei sachar. The Gemara says it depends if he was paid or not paid. Perfect is even if he was free, so what? But even if he's not paid, so he's a shomer chinam. So he wasn't pesheya, but he's oinus. He should have to pay anyway. He damaged the guy's thing. So Tesi says that's called oinus. A guy's trying to do his job and he messes up, so he's oinus. Oinus gomer is potter according to Tosfos. Not paid. Paid, he's hired, and therefore he has more responsibility, which is Tosfos' whole shita that you have more achrayas as a shomer of sacher than a other mazik. Okay, but that's the question. Who cares? But even if he's not paid, he damaged it. No, he's a certain level of oinus. I mean, he's an experienced guy. I wasn't taking into account that he was going to mess up.
You're not paying him for doing a good job.
The good old you get what you pay for. I know, but this is a very strong raya. So let's go to these two rayas that Tosfos brings. Tosfos has the case of the children who shechted their father, the animal that they thought was theirs, but it really wasn't theirs because they got it from the father and the father had borrowed it. And the other case is a case of the tabach uman shekilkel, the guy who was paid to shecht, or he was shechting for you, and he messed up. Both cases, Tosfos proves his point of oinus. So what could the Ramban respond to those two cases? Why would he be potter? He damaged someone's thing. And the Ramban holds oinus is chayiv. There's no excuses. So the Ramban has a new yesod. The Ramban has a new yesod on that. And
by Shul, they don't have to pay back the thing?
if they were the shoyel, they do. But here the father was the shoyel.
Shul, they don't have to pay back what he borrowed?
You have to pay back what he borrowed if it's still here. But here it's gone.
They caused it.
Yeah, but they were not the shoyel.
No, but they were honest. They were honest.
They were honest. That's what I say.
Because they were honest, they don't pay back.
What about the benefit? They gain the benefit?
No, that they do. They have to pay the benefit. They have to pay for the butcher, like as if the guy was a butcher shop. They have to pay basar bazal. They have to pay the demei basar bazal, what it would cost to buy that much meat in the butcher shop, because that they take a benefit, but they don't have to pay the damages. So if you look on page 10, is the Ramban. We'll try to. And the Ramban says, like this, where it's underlined, okay? he has two principles, that with these two principles he addresses most of Tosfos' rayas. He says, V'i efshar lahamida. He says, I don't hold of Tosfos' proof with the sleeping. Dehasam mishum desheni pasha be'atzmai. So that's right there. Sheni pasha be'atzmai. The owner basically was pasha on his own stuff. So that knocks out half of Tosfos' rayas. That once the other party was pasha, so that clears the mazik from any of his responsibility. In a different raya of Tosfos, he says, "Be'im haya bal koyer rishon bal chavis achrain, v'kula masnisen." V'chein masha omer, the Gemara that we saw, lefi she'ein darkan shebnei adam lizboinin bedrachim. Right? You can't expect somebody to look at the street when it's dark. Kulon. The reason is kishehem adam amazik mishum pshia denizik patroi bohu. Adam amazik is always chayiv, but here you have pshia of the nizik. Because the damagee, the guy who owns the crystal bowl, he put it in the streets. It's his problem. Or the guy that went to sleep next to the other guy sleeping. What are you doing? Going to next to you yourself? Put yourself in that situation. Oy shein bark going shallah niska boy v'inli larkan. So Dr. Ramban, that's principle number one, to deflect half of Tosfos' proof. Most of the Tosfos' proofs he deflected with that. But then he has the other case. Tosfos has another raya. This is the top of the second column. Tabach uman shekilkel, the potter b'chinam. Tabach uman is this case. He's a sheichet, and it was free, and he sells potter. Why is he potter adam maziku? V'chinam isfir lon onosu lechayiv. Even if he's an oinus, he should still have to pay. So this Tosfos is other proof. Says Dr. Ramban, v'zeh vadei kasha aleim. I don't understand the proof at all. The kivin the mechayiv b'schar alma kein gneva v'avedu v'lav onis godu. First of all, says Tosfos. Says the Ramban, first of all, it's not a real oinus over there. It's not such a big oinus. Even Tosfos l'shitasam, I don't understand why they're potter. But he says v'lav onis katanu. It's not an oinus at all. Ella, so this is the line of the Ramban. She'ein be'uman hatoya b'malachtoi mishum mazik. This guy's not a mazik. This guy's not a mazik. So what's he saying? What do you mean this guy's not a mazik? He damaged your thing. So the Ramban is explaining over here a concept. The way the Achronim say the Ramban is that the Ramban is saying a new concept called a mazik bershus. Mazik bershus means if I have permission to do what I'm doing, then you can't now turn around and say you're a mazik. So for example, right, if you were to go to a Rav, and the Rav would say, am I allowed to walk in the street, not look where I'm going, and step on people's stuff? No, the Rav would tell you, be careful, don't do that. But what if you would, and let's say the case we started off in Baba Kama. You have a stone on your lap, and you would ask a Rav, am I allowed to get up without looking at my lap? Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not something there. He said, no, you have to be careful. Look at your... It's possible for you to have protected yourself from that. Even Tosfos holds like that. Because you could have avoided it. Look down. So you did something wrong, essentially. Even if you're an oinus, but you did something. But over here, if you asked me to shecht for you, I would ask a Rav, am I allowed to shecht for him? Yeah. So you have reshus to do the maisa you're doing. If you mess up toich a maisa that you have reshus to do, it's called mazik bershus. The actual maisa you're doing, you have permission to do, and therefore you can't be classified as a mazik. You're not someone that's damaging. You're doing something you have permission to do. So you're not a mazik at all. So the maisa we can't classify as a maisa hazik, because the maisa was a maisa of reshus. Now, there's a machlokes in the Achronim. This person on the bottom is takes one view, but there's a machlokes in the Achronim. How much reshus? What does the Ramban mean? Does the Ramban mean only because, well, I'm doing the guy a favor? So he asked me to do this for him, so of course I'm going to do it. Or not necessarily. Just anytime you have permission to do what you're doing, and you're doing 100% reshus, then you're potter. And the Stipler says that that's pshat, and Memela says the Stipler that's pshat and the kids also. If the kids would ask their Rav, are we allowed to shecht the animal? He would say, yeah. Why are you allowed to shecht it? because they're allowed to go with the assumption that if the father died and there was a cow in his backyard, that it's his. You can assume it's his. So they had the right to assume that it was the father's. Therefore, what they did was completely brishus. So Mamela, you can't classify them as a mazik.
Brishus who?
Brishus the Torah.
Not Brishus the person.
Right.
Because some people say we're suggesting here that it was an inherent risk. That when I borrowed the cow, when the person borrowed the cow, it was the person who lent it to him.
If you would say like that, then you have no teretz for the case of the Yisraelim. That's why I'm saying it this way.
Why?
Because there's no inherent risk by the other guy.
I lend somebody something without aiding him. I know that there's an inherent risk that
He's going to die and his kids are going to... No, that's not... I don't think he meant that. He meant that when you give someone something to work on for you, there's always going to be a possibility.
You lend somebody something and without aiding him, you know there's a chance that he's going to have a coronary on the way home and nobody's going to know that you borrowed it.
And if there were aid in the case was different, it's of course the guy to get the kids just don't know.
Right. It doesn't do with Adam, not Adam here. The point is that he's mazik brishus. It doesn't mean brishus the owner. That's a stipler's teaching. It means brishus haTorah. It means if a person would ask the Rav, and the Rav would say, yeah, you have permission to do what you're doing. So the mice is not classified as a mice of hezek. It's not considered damage.
By definition, he's a doctor. He's not a mazik. He's a contractor. He's not a mazik.
Or he's someone just eating supper.
Right.
He's doing something which is a mice of rishus. It's not a mice of hezek. So therefore, even though Einis is chayiv, but there's a step before that. I'll just give an example. I'll give an example like this. We know that even according to the Ramban, there's a concept of grama. What does grama mean? Grama is indirect damage. So when I damage a person indirectly, so I cause them damage, I should have to pay, I'm responsible. But the damage has to come from a maisa of hezek. There has to be, the Torah says, it's not enough that if I damage someone by, there's a whole shaila, if you damage someone with a kishuf. It could be, the Torah saying that even though Adam would loyal, but it has to be a maisa of hezek. If the action is not classified as a mice of damage, then you're potter. It's almost like a grumman now at this point. What I didn't do damage. I was just shechting your animal. I was just eating supper. Damage comes out. That's already called like a grumma. It's not coming from my mice because my mice is a mice of rishos.
This is only when he doesn't get paid.
Once you get paid, then you're chayiv al pshia. You have a certain level more responsibility. Now it's al the mamazik. You're chayiv al shomer, because you're once you're paid, you're like a shomer sachar. A shomer sachar has a higher level of responsibility, so you're chayiv al tzilcha shomer, not al mazik.
So the second clown of the Ramban he still needs the first clown of Sheni B'Shei B'Atzmo?
Yeah, because
let's say the case over here where you're walking there, it's just a rabbit.
No, but you're not mazik b'shus there because technically, someone should say, well, yeah, you look where you're going. So Teretz is your oinus. It's not in your control. The etzem ma'isa. What am I doing?
Let's say once we say it's the Karen's office.
Right. So
I was just to walk. I have to peek around every single corner. I have to ask the Rav will tell me, yeah, before you turn every corner, you have to look like this before you go every corner.
Possibly, Teretz says it's an oinus. Okay, but that alone wouldn't pater you because you have a way of avoiding it, and you're walking as something you should be avoiding. You can technically look. I mean, you're saying it's oinus, impossible. What? I'm only not chayiv because whoever put something there it's his problem. Rosh Zalman will clear shiloh. We'll talk about next week. What if it wasn't the owner who put it there? According to the Ramban. Someone else put it there, not the owner. It's because the owner was Pashea, or is it because there's someone else that took responsibility here? But let's take it's the owner for now. So, Mamela, that's not enough to... You're saying, according to the Stipler's Taich of it, that anything...
As long as there's some level where I'm not chayav to look.
I don't think you're not chayav to look. I think you're not chayav to look because what's going to be there is someone must have put something there.
It's dark outside. We said that and the guy put something there. So according to Tosos, it's onus gomer your potter. According to the Ramban, it doesn't hold that.
It's because otherwise B'Shei B'Atzmai.
So we say it's B'Shei B'Atzmai. Why don't we just say because it's massive rishus?
What's their shus?
I'm allowed to walk at night.
Let's say I'm not allowed to. Let's say it would be in someone else's property. Let's say we're both in someone else's property. I don't have to do with Rishos. It's not the point. The point is that he was Pasha Batzma. It's a much more of a broader cloud.
He's just saying, why do you need both starts?
Because they both cover different cases.
According to Ramban, if I put your item and my item on the Rosh Hashanah, I put my item and your item. I take your item. I'm holding your item. I put my item and your item in the Rosh Hashanah, and he walks over that. So on my item, he's going to be potter, and on your item, he'll be higher.
You want to know according to Rav Shlomo Zalman what happens if you put someone else's thing?
Yeah. But that would be why you need both reasons.
You're saying you understand better, not like this type of touch. The Rishus means the Rishus of the owner. So then that's only the case. That's only going to address the case of the Shoichet. When you told me to do it specifically, I'm doing with Tevascha. But short of that, you wouldn't say. But then you still need you still need the kasha of the Yisraelim would still need a beer. Okay, so I want to do next week. I want to get into the svaras here. What's the machlekes between the Ramban and Tosfos in the svara, and what does the Rambam hold? That's always the fun part of the sugya. It's the Rambam next week, and we'll pick it up. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of going into further. Who's ever interested? So we started a Shabbos afternoon, trying to get a little head start on the Ma'amar Kaimis. So who's ever interested can try to find the Chavur. So speak to Rav David or myself. Yishkach. Yishkach.